First of all, let me take this moment to first of all introduce ourselves and our guests to our audiences. So thank you so much everyone for coming in, and it's right now right 12 p.m. on the clock, and we can see still people joining, and I think a lot more people to join because we have received quite a good amount of registrations. But so I will quickly introduce. I am Pratham Kashyap, your host for the evening and basically the moderator of this session. And we have with us the great Julia Ford, the director of nonprofit partnerships at HubSpot, and she is here to share some great things about social media, some trends, some tips, some tricks, some best practices about social media with all of you nonprofits. And I hope, and we hope that you get to learn a lot out of this. And so what I will do, Julia, I will quickly, first of all, uh, I think people are still joining in, so I can take this time to briefly introduce about Goodera. All right, hello everyone. So we are a part of Goodera, and Goodera we try to call ourselves the Airbnb of volunteering and social impact space. So what we do is we precisely bridge the gap between the non-profit organizations and the corporate organizations. So how we do it is a very long story, because we do it in a multiple ways. We provide corporate volunteers to non-profit organizations, we provide public showcase to non-profit organizations, and there are several of our clients uh, who have corporate matching gifts program. We do that as well, and through that we have received these numbers, these great numbers that you can see on the screen, and we have been funded by quite a few marquee investors. So that is it, and we are co-headquartered in San Francisco, California, and Bangalore in India. So that's a very quick brief, and so I think this is a very brief highlight of our nonprofit partners, not all of them, but just a few logos to give you a basic idea about how vast our network of nonprofit organizations is, because this ranges from different cause areas, from multiple geographies all around the world. And I'm sure a lots of nonprofit organizations from all around the world have joined this webinar as well to understand about social media. So basically how Goodera creates an impact with the help of its nonprofit partners. So there are several ways. Like I told you, our volunteers create some beautiful illustrations while doing virtual volunteering activities, and these are just to give a very basic idea. These are some of the creatives which have been further used by the nonprofit organizations on their website, social media, and whatnot. The other way is marketing and promotions. So we consistently try to do campaigns around these specific cause areas and try to bring into the light the great work our nonprofit partners have been doing. So we create blog, we create video, we do interviews, topical interviews, we give a social media highlight as well. So basically marketing, promotion, and sharing the voice and the great work that our nonprofit partners are doing. So this is something very special to us. Next of all comes corporate matching gifts program. So what our corporate clients do is, whenever they come for virtual volunteering sessions, so a lot of times the corporate organizations donate a certain amount, certain dollars for every single volunteer hour, which is very interesting, because in this way the nonprofits get to have the volunteers as well as the donation amount. So this is one of the ways that we try to bridge this gap. And last of all, but never the least, we consistently organize these kind of knowledge sessions. We consistently share resources for nonprofit organizations that are very relevant. And this is our group, which is an exclusive nonprofit community on Facebook. This is called Karma Community for Nonprofits. Here we have created a small ecosystem, small community of all the philanthropic leaders and nonprofit organizations who want to learn from each other and benefit some useful resources from us as well. So I think that's pretty much it from my end. I will quickly stop sharing, and in the meantime, my colleague Nandini Jain will be sharing a link of Karma Community with all of you. So whosoever is interested in joining this community, they can feel free to join. And let me quickly thank Julia. So thank you, Julia, for joining in. And we are really grateful. And I think all of us stand to learn a lot from you. There are nonprofit organizations joining. And so far we have had 162 participants with us. And over to you, Julia.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for having me today. I'm very excited to be with all of you to talk about social media 101. So contrary to an early spammer in the chat, we are here to talk about social media. If you are a nonprofit looking to ground in the basics of social media platforms and how you can leverage them to maximize your impact, then you are in the right place today. So in order for us to be successful on social media, it's very important to take a step back and ground in why people engage with content online. Platforms for us, and us today means nonprofits, to find people with similar interests, buy and sell used goods, share curated windows into our personal lives. These have been around in some capacity since the mid-90s. In recent years, even before the digital adoption tide that COVID brought, we have seen listservs, message boards, etc., morph into much more personal and interactive spaces with photo, video, and live stream repositories. It is inherent in human nature to seek connection, to find inspiration and acceptance through community, and social media platforms really do have something for everyone. As marketers and fundraisers, we, on behalf of the nonprofits we serve, constantly identify points of connection and build foundations for community to come together towards a common goal or a common cause. It's our job to meet people where they are, in their moment, and to serve up the content that will invite them to join our world, our community, and then also bring 10 of their friends to hang out with us. And we know that different people need different methods of communication, and that different events require different modes of information delivery. This can be as easy as a personal email blast for a hosted dinner party, or maybe a neighborhood-specific postering campaign for a block party. And it can be as challenging as a multi-channel marketing campaign to get folks on all different places and spaces to buy raffle tickets, to bid on auction items, and to attend a hybrid event, which is remote and in-person simultaneously, that results in an epic ROI for our nonprofit. The idea that where we communicate is as important as when and how we communicate is a foundational building block of any sustainable social media strategy. We, as nonprofits, need to first find the places and spaces where our target audiences are hanging out. We don't need to recreate the wheel. We just need to understand what mediums of communication and information sharing our constituents are leveraging and meet them there. At HubSpot, we are constantly evaluating marketing and communication strategy alongside the broader market. Kip, who is our Chief Marketing Officer, is currently spending a fair amount of time thinking about the future of the internet. This is otherwise known as Web3. With the purchase of Twitter yesterday, this conversation is blowing up on many people's feeds. And I don't want to take us down a rabbit hole, but want to spend a second talking about what might be coming. So if we ground in the early days of the internet, the first version, Web 1, we saw a World Wide Web that was solely used by companies rather than individuals. Only a few folks knew how to operate and use the internet. Most large companies had computer experts who operated the internet and to implement it across the company for their employees. Content creators, the people actually making the things that lived on the internet, were few and far between. Content viewers were plentiful. There were no advertisements on sites, and most pages were created through HTML. Web 2 changed how the world saw the internet. It became much more widespread, and it offers user-to-user interaction, content creation, blogging. Sites like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and more were launched around this period as the internet became much more accessible to the individual versus solely for companies. The future of the World Wide Web is Web 3, and there's a lot of speculation about where we're going and what could be an entirely different webinar on cryptocurrency and the future of nonprofit fundraising, is today just going to focus on the ideas that distributed ownership of content, so things like blockchain, metaverse, artificial intelligence, will all allow us to have much more avenues for creation and promotion of our own content. So if we think about influencers, instead of getting paid by big brands, the community would be able to allocate resources and support directly to people. The new world will likely have many more opportunities for us to create, host, post, share, and monetize our own content. So why am I bringing this up? Because the ways in which we create, post, and distribute content become more democratized, the onus is on us as individuals and us as nonprofit organizations to show up authentically and to meet our core audiences where they are, with content that makes sense to them and resonates. This bar is going to be higher and higher as the content marketplace becomes more and more saturated. So I'm going to pause now to formally introduce myself. My name is Julia Ford, and while I currently run the nonprofit program at HubSpot, in my previous vocational lives, I have always worked for nonprofits. I have done everything from direct service, case management, all the way through community organizing, marketing events, major gifts. I was a development director. And my experience leveraging social media platforms for fundraising started way back in the day when Facebook first came out. I think I had my first nonprofit Facebook page in 2006. Today, in my role and with the software that is HubSpot, I get to overlay nonprofits who are leading the charge on creative and effective fundraising campaigns. These are happening on Twitch, TikTok, more. So I'm really excited to be chatting with you all today to share some of the fundamentals of a good social strategy. As we look towards Web3, and just want to be clear that many would argue we're already there, showing up authentically and best leveraging our stories of impact is paramount to long-term financial sustainability. Today, we're going to talk about general trends with nonprofits and social media, establish the building blocks of a strong social media strategy, dive into some platform specifics, and take a peek at nonprofits doing this work really well. Finally, we'll leave you with a few key takeaways you can implement today, and we will have plenty of time for questions. Reminder to please use that Slido interface. In light of the way the internet has moved from its inception to the current version, it might come as a surprise that almost 70% of nonprofits report that they do not have a social media strategy. Or maybe because you're all here today, this is not a surprise at all. That said, even more surprising is that in spite of a lack of strategy, almost 90% of nonprofits say that they engage with their supporters on social, and more nonprofits have some kind of social media presence than have a website. Of the folks that are using social media, nearly everybody reports having a Facebook page. 73% are on Instagram, 60% are on Twitter, and 48% are leveraging LinkedIn. Nonprofits clearly understand the need to show up on social. They're investing time into building profiles and posting, but most are not taking the first step to establish a strategy to get the right message and information to the right people on the right channel, on the right device at the right time. There is so much opportunity here. In order to best enter and capitalize in a world of content creators and established communities, we need to set a strategy that allows us to fit in. So tone, timing, presentation, while also standing out. The right place to start is to set a strategy for how, when, where, and why your nonprofit is going to show up online. We need to ask questions before we create a page or a profile. We need to have set goals or KPIs, key performance indicators, to measure our success. And perhaps most importantly, we need to know who we are as nonprofits, as an organization. Authenticity is key. Having an established brand identity, not just visually via a logo, font, color palette, but in our messaging, our writing style, our general voice. Having a strong sense of organizational self will allow us to maintain consistency while flexing to the different needs of our audiences and the platforms they choose to frequent. If we start with knowing our core audience or audiences, the rest of the strategy setting becomes much more grounded and actionable. In order to identify and know our audiences, we need to ask ourselves who, where, what, and why. Who are our core audiences? You might have some existing donor demographics. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 50. Where are they hanging out? Direct mail isn't dead, so a method of communication definitely still needs to be mailers. But where are folks online? What do they care about? What motivates them? How can you bring people in? And lastly, why do we need their support? There is nothing worse than getting somebody's attention, but having nowhere to put it. After we define our audiences, we want to get smart. So setting goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. In order to set our nonprofits up for success, we need to evaluate where we are today and where we want to be in 6 months, in a year. Make sure goals are specific. Saying, I want to grow my Twitter following is one thing. But if you get smart, that goal morphs into something much more like, okay, my nonprofit doesn't have a Twitter profile today. In 6 months, I want to have 20,000 followers. In order to do that, we need to establish our profile, target a list of accounts to follow, and do this in month 1. Then we need to bring on 4,000 followers each month. In order to do this, we're going to run X number of campaigns, X number of brand awareness, X number of fundraising. Take it a step further and think about specific engagement needs per post. How many likes do you want? How many retweets? How are you going to measure success? Once you have audiences identified and KPIs established, it's important to really take the time to be thoughtful and intentional about building your social profiles. Take your existing brand and what you know has worked in the past. Is there an annual report that you got rave reviews about? An email that had a crazy high open rate? Or a keynote speech at an event that resulted in the most epic paddle raise you have ever experienced? What are some of the common threads between those assets or those experiences? Can you pull on those threads and play up the ethos of your brand that resonated with folks? What is the brand voice and recognizable tone and tenor here? As you're thinking about being you and building your brand and staying true to that brand, play to people's strengths. Ask your staff to weigh in. I will never forget at my last agency job before I started at HubSpot, we were consultants for large international nonprofits, and we had a summer intern. We were leading a workshop on social media for a network of healthcare clinics. During one of the breakout sessions, he revealed that he was an influencer and had 100,000 followers on Instagram. His experience and insights proved invaluable, and he wound up supporting the clinic staff with a strategy that they are still implementing and iterating on today. Bringing people into the conversation early and often and providing space for them to lead will usually have significant ROI. Even if you don't have a hidden influencer on your staff, leveraging the content that you know works, identifying your voice and your strengths, both in content and people, will lend themselves to a good strategic start. Once you have these things in place, it's a really good idea to take your learnings and make a social media brand guide for your team. This will grow and evolve with you for years to come, but will be super helpful in terms of content governance for any admins or moderators. If you then take that brand guide and apply it to different social media platforms, you will have a true blueprint for success. Different platforms require different character counts, image sizes, video guidelines, etc. When you attend a social media training or hear people talk about multi or omni-channel fundraising or social media strategy, what they are not suggesting is that you post the exact same thing to multiple different platforms. Instead, your content needs to be adapted to the platform and to the audience you know is hanging out on that platform. You want to make sure that your brand voice comes through and is consistent no matter where you show up. And it's a super fine balance to get it right. We're going to dig into some specific examples of nonprofits doing this well in a bit. But first, let's do a quick review of the different social media platforms and their unique qualities and use cases. To say the landscape is saturated is putting it mildly. If we take a look at the first 9 or 10 years of the social media landscape, and if you want to count listservs like Craigslist, we have to go back a bit further to the mid-90s, we can see that some of the earliest platforms to be developed are still major players today. Alongside their durability and evolution, we continue to see innovation changes and demographic shifts in how and who interacts on them. Much of what drives these changes are competitors in the space. Some of these latest and greatest platforms quickly rise to the top. I'm calling out TikTok here. And they spur massive feature shifts in the tried and true, like the Facebooks of the world, while others might experience a brief rise in popularity, only to fade into obscurity within a few months. Thinking of like the Clubhouses of the world. I know it's still around. Today, we are going to hone in on the platforms that are proven for nonprofit impact amplification and fundraising. So let's move into Facebook to start. Facebook was established in 2004. They have almost 3 billion active users. In 2021, a rebrand happened. So Facebook is now Meta, which is a parent company, and that oversees Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Messenger. Facebook is the most popular social media network for folks aged 35 to 44, hands down. So most easily defined as older millennials. These folks, I am one, we are most likely to have been early users of Facebook. It launched when we were either in college or shortly thereafter. The most effective way to campaign and fundraise on Facebook is via Facebook fundraisers. Almost 90% of all funds for nonprofits that are raised on Facebook come through this medium. If you are looking to layer on or run an ad campaign on the platform, your best bet is to target people aged between 25 and 34. Ad reach generally is very, very low for Gen Z and younger, and people over 65. As another tip, use the donate button functionality. Add the button on your pages, ads, posts, any live videos. One thing to flag on Facebook is that from moves management or longer-term donor cultivation strategy, you can lose out on successfully following up with donors unless they opt into receiving communication from you. So make sure you keep this top of mind when you frame your campaigns and your asks. Try to incentivize folks to hit that opt-in button. All right, we're going to move into Instagram. So Instagram came into the picture in 2010. Gen Z are the most frequent users of this platform, with about 53% engaging on a daily basis. Millennials are a fast follow, and only a third of Gen X leverages the platform. So this audience skews younger. Folks are used to the likes of TikTok and YouTube, and you really are going to want to lean into Instagram stories. Instagram has 3 ways of building out a profile and sharing information. So the first is static. You can include information about your nonprofit. This is where you have a profile image, maybe some emojis, your mission statement, a link in your bio. The static state is inclusive of the Instagram grid, which many of us are familiar with. So this is the scroll through stills that we have posted over time. The second is through stories. So these can be short stills, video snippets, etc. They can be uploaded, added to your story, and will disappear after about 24 hours. The third is a more evergreen version of stories. These are highlights or saved reels. You can flag stories you've posted to save by campaign or by topic. And when folks navigate to your profile, they can scroll through content that would have otherwise disappeared. It becomes a permanent fixture. I think the easiest way to visualize or conceptualize this is to think about Instagram stories from the lens of a tattoo artist. So if I'm a tattoo artist, my feed might have static photos, These are going to be like the close-ups of the newest ink I've given to a client. They might be some personal photos of me and my life so that I have this professional, relatable persona. I'm using my stories more about like hour by hour breakdowns. Let's say I'm doing a massive piece on somebody's back and I want to show the progression. They could also be the comings and goings at my tattoo shop, but they're going to disappear after the day. It's just kind of keeping people posted. My highlight reels are segmented by subject. I have an aggregate of all of my tattoos. I have an aggregate of all of my personal content, and somebody that's coming to evaluate me and my work can very easily click into the different segments that I have curated. Another Instagram consideration is that the platform requires you to get really creative with hyperlinks. To inspire action, your followers will need to have a CTA and a link off platform in order to convert. Before we move on, it's worth calling out that tagging posts appropriately is really important in order for the algorithm to surface your content. And interaction here is key to success. Don't simply post and walk away. You will want to engage with people. If somebody likes something, like that they liked it. If they comment on something, comment back. Make sure you're creating dialogue. Next up is Twitter. So let's put all thoughts and talks about its recent acquisition by Elon Musk to the side. At this point, we can only speculate about how the platform might change. And in the meantime, 217 million active users, although I do think that number has decreased today, are still tweeting away. The platform is, in my opinion, for nonprofits specifically, all or nothing. Don't invest the time and energy to set it up if you don't have someone on staff who is going to be on top of posting, engagement, and moderation. The more time you spend on the platform, the more ROI, return on investment, you will see. The age range here is similar to other platforms, with millennials comprising the bulk of users. Take the time to set up your profile the right way. Unlike Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, which all expect some regular updating of your nonprofit's presence, the way you establish your brand here matters right out of the gate. Another note is that simplicity is key on this platform. Shorter tweets on average receive more retweets, more impressions, and more link and profile clicks. Much like Instagram, make sure you include links in your posts. Tweets with links have an 86% higher retweet rate and higher engagement overall because people are hesitant to retweet or engage with tweets that don't have a source or a call to action. Including links also, small aside, helps increase traffic to your website and increases SEO long-term. The next platform we're going to talk through is TikTok. Goodera was nice enough and sent over some of the pre-surveys, and a few of you asked questions like, do we have to be on TikTok? Hopefully you have a better answer to that by the end of today. I spent an entire Passover Seder this year engaged in a large debate with friends and family about the merits and ethics of social media, as well as its efficacy compared to historical community organizing tactics. More on this future TED Talk. TikTok was the front runner in terms of everybody around the table who was over 50, not knowing what it was, and they needed some general education about the platform. I will note that this did not stop them from having early opinions about it, though. So to lay the foundation about the newer player in terms of our brains as marketers and fundraisers, TikTok is where Gen Z and Gen Alpha are hanging out. As we previously chatted about, being authentic is paramount to success on all platforms, but on TikTok, this bar is particularly high. Super produced, fundraising, salesy type videos, they're not going to fly here. Your best strategy on TikTok is to pay attention to what your younger staff members care about, what trends they're focused on, and how they are personally using the platform. Authentic content will get you a really long way. I actually volunteered about 4 months ago at a needle exchange in my neighborhood, and the staff working at the front desk and managing visitors were all on the younger side, I would say like early to mid 20s. At one point, a team member was tasked with going through clothing donations. They'd been sitting around for a few weeks. Visitors were not picking them up. They were not items that were helpful to folks who were experiencing homelessness. So this person is going through some notably odd donations, and they were having a good time. They were absolutely cataloging things and trying to make the most out of the donations, but they started doing like a fashion show. So they were putting on crazy like furry mullet hats and bow ties and doing a catwalk. And one of their coworkers started filming them. And they actually turned that into a TikTok campaign to try to educate the community on what donations worked and what did not work for the demographic of visitor coming through. Super interesting, a really great example of something authentic, natural, in the moment, and effective. Moving into our last platform today, LinkedIn is a small sidestep away from direct peer-to-peer user-generated content arena of Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Platform users leverage LinkedIn to connect with like-minded business people. So they're applying and recruiting for jobs, following the latest news. 60% of LinkedIn's users are between 25 and 34. The rest are mostly skewing a bit older. And nonprofits that find the most success on LinkedIn have a really active and engaged employee base. Something important to consider when thinking about using LinkedIn for your nonprofit is that 30%, so a third of what you should expect in terms of interaction on your organization's posts, should come from inside your team. Individual LinkedIn users are 14 times more likely to promote something that their company or their nonprofit has done or posted, and to engage with their employer's content than anything else on the platform. So if you're going to invest in LinkedIn, get your staff to invest in LinkedIn. All that said, it's still social media. Make sure to use images. Posts with images get twice the engagement of those without. Use the platform to raise brand awareness for your nonprofit. Community events and ways for people to find immediate value and interaction. So think less about donations and more about business partnerships or event sponsorships. These will do better on LinkedIn. Before we move into a short note about hashtags, because you cannot have a talk on social media without talking about hashtags, and some specific case studies, I do want to call out that the reason we highlighted Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and LinkedIn is because these are the most used platforms. Other arenas like YouTube, WhatsApp, Snapchat, Twitch are growing in popularity, and there's certainly a place and space for them in nonprofit fundraising, but they've yet to reach a large enough audience to warrant investment, in my opinion. Certainly, if you're a nonprofit that serves a lot of young people or you're in gaming, we can have a whole different conversation about Twitch. But let's make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that the landscape is ever changing. It's always worth keeping an eye out and an ear to the ground. Okay, a little bit about hashtags. So these are a vital part of any successful social media strategy, and they can be the toughest to get right. I also really just struggle with them in general. The best practices vary depending on the platform. So some folks say include between 3 and 5, others push you to an 8 to 12 rule. No matter how many hashtags you use, it's not going to help you boost engagement or attract the right audience if you're using the wrong ones. So you want to be thoughtful and selective when creating your strategy. For people new to hashtags, there's like more than 2, but we're going to focus in on 2 basic steps to setting up a good strategy here. So the first step is to come up with a branded hashtag for your nonprofit or for a specific campaign. Keep it simple and to the point. So if we think about the organization Girl Up, they use hashtag Girl Up. The second step is to use community hashtags that are not specific to your nonprofit, but to your sector or cause. So if we pull on the Girl Up example, hashtag Girl Power. So at this point, you have differentiated yourself, you are standing out, and you are also fitting in. When you're looking for the right community hashtags, use the search feature in platform to check which hashtag iterations are the most popular. For example, the hashtag Pride has nearly 13.4 million uses, but Pride Month has about 1.1 million uses. So in this case, if you wanted the potential to reach more people or wanted to use a more general hashtag, you're going to go with hashtag Pride. Okay. We've covered what nonprofits are doing and not doing on social today. We've chatted through how to establish a social media strategy, asking questions, setting goals, finding your authentic voice, and staying consistent yet flexible. And we talked about the different platforms and use cases. It is one thing to hear about the platforms and the do's and the don'ts. And it's another thing entirely to have a real life example of nonprofit orgs who are showing up and seeing results. So the American Kennel Club is where we're going to start. A little bit of a funny one. They have a mission to advance the study, breeding, exhibiting, running, and maintenance of purebred dogs. They've been around for over 130 years. They've got 100,000 followers on Twitter, 370,000 followers on Instagram, over 4 million followers on Facebook, and close to 200,000 followers on TikTok. They raise close to $40 million a year. AKC does an amazing job providing content governance resources for their regional chapters and individual followers. They provide platform-specific outlines for posting, and they differentiate their content to best meet the needs of their core audiences on different platforms. So if you Google American Kennel Club social media, you will actually see resources that they provide for everybody to say, like, here's some stuff you could put on Facebook. Here's what you could put on Instagram. So on Facebook, AKC shares tips and articles about dog care, like this post featuring the best dog raincoats to establish its place as an expert in dog welfare. Their TikTok has a different goal, and this is to engage audiences, primarily younger, with cute dog videos. So this TikTok post succeeded not by educating about raincoats and dog care, but by showing off an incredibly cute Pekingese breed at a dog show. Next up, the It Gets Better project, whose mission is to uplift, empower, and connect LGBTQ youth. Uh-oh, that's my dog. Sorry, everybody, work from home problems around the globe. The project's mission came out of an organic campaign in 2010, excuse me, that was led by the LGBTQ plus community and allies all over the world. The campaign, which was organically dubbed It Gets Better, launched with more than 70,000 people sharing their stories to provide hope and encouragement. And today, the It Gets Better project is a global nonprofit. It reaches millions of young people each year through programs, resources, international community partners, service providers. They have 500,000 followers on Facebook, 127,000 followers on Instagram, and more than 200,000 followers on TikTok. Their target demographic skews younger, and it shows based on where folks are showing up and interacting with their content. The project leans really heavily into real-time communication with their audiences through social media surveys and comments. On Instagram, the It Gets Better project uses stories to invite audience participation and bring their viewers into focus. They anonymize information they receive, but make it clear that they're paying attention to what their viewers are saying and asking for. On TikTok, the It Gets Better project uses stories to invite, rereading something. So on TikTok, they put a label on top of each video to bring people in, and then they do a featured true story or share from one of their content creators to provide context and understanding. So Instagram is like a back and forth, and TikTok is very much a campaign for awareness building. Building a profile and interactive content map like AKC and It Gets Better takes some time, and we live in a world of instant gratification. So regardless of if crafting a social media strategy is the first step for many of you after today's session, or if you've been slaying it on social for years and years, I do want to make sure that the things we chatted about today and the examples we just grounded in feel actionable for your nonprofit's needs. So let's dive into just a few quick wins that you can run with. So the first is to use video. Use TikTok to reach new users, use Instagram Reels to re-engage your audience, and go live. We didn't spend a lot of time on this today, but the algorithms on all of these platforms favor live videos over produced and natively posted videos. Next up is to up your hashtag game. So focus hashtags on uniquely branding your org or your campaign. Leverage popular hashtags to get surfaced in search or on aggregate pages. And hot tip, I'm going to talk you through it really fast. If you don't love a photo and then a zillion hashtags below it, you can actually take the hashtags out of your caption. So if you open your notepad on your phone and you type out 5 periods, each one on a separate line, period, enter 5 times. And then on the 6th line, type out all of the hashtags for the photo that you're posting, and then copy, paste this text into a comment on your photo and post, and then you refresh, the comment will shrink and readers will need to click on it to see your hashtags. So it's just a way to get all of the information out there, have the algorithm reference it, but not overwhelm your viewer. Lastly, make your profile legitimate. Upgrade to a business account or page where and when you can. Oftentimes the cost is very low here. And don't shy away from donate buttons or links in bio. It is important that people understand, hey, we're here, this is our mission, we're a nonprofit, and here is what we are asking you to do, and here is an easy way to support us. All right, we are into question mode. So I would love to know how to bring in donations from social media. So my questions are like, are you asking people to donate? Are you putting links in? Where are folks engaging? If you did a little bit of a step back to see, okay, what content's performing well and why, seeing where folks are engaging and then just doing a little CTA and making that CTA relevant to what they've liked or interacted with, but also convert. And it would be an interesting exercise. I'm not sure about this one. I'm assuming this is about the Kennel Club. Did her dog bark because she can't? Oh, me. Maybe my dog was really excited about that. I think it was also because the mail carrier was here. This makes a lot more sense. All right, how about putting hashtags in the comments? I've seen a comment titled hashtag and the reply is just all hashtags. So I think we just went through that. You can absolutely put hashtags in the comments and it will make it so that the algorithm references them, but it's not taking away from the visual impact of your post. Please help me understand how to schedule posts to multiple accounts from one place. This is absolutely possible. There are plenty of tools. HubSpot is one of them where you can do this. So I would say you can find me on LinkedIn, reach out via email, let's talk about it. But generally, this is a third-party software that allows you to both schedule posts as well as manage all your posts. And it can aggregate everything in one platform. They're super powerful, really useful, worth the investment. How can we make our stories shareable? We don't seem to have that option in our preferences, and it's definitely a problem. I'm going to assume this is about Instagram. And shareable stories are really dependent on your viewers. So people need to basically like hit the dots and share it or screenshot it and share it. So this could be a platform limitation, but I'm not positive exactly about the platform that we're talking about. Yes, we can't get information about Facebook gifts, donor info, etc. So this is one of the things that I called out on the slide. From a moves management standpoint, Facebook can be really, really difficult because they're not giving you important information unless the donors opt in. So when I was running Facebook campaigns, I would try to do an incentive. I would like have my ask, make it very clear, but also say like, if you opt in and give us your information, you could be entered to win X. Whether it's like a free pair of tickets to a gala or some swag. It doesn't always work, but it is one of the unfortunate but true limitations of the platform. Twitch is an epic streaming service, super fast, super powerful, can shut down your entire home's high-speed Wi-Fi. This is where a ton of like exercise classes went when the pandemic hit, but it started as a gaming platform. So it's a shared gaming platform. There's some really, really effective Twitch fundraising campaigns. I would invite you to check those out. Are there any up and coming newer platforms that we should watch for or get a jump on? You know, I ask myself this all the time and my team is always asking this. I think what we're seeing right now is that a lot of the sort of traditional platforms that we covered today are coming out with newer features as they start to compete with each other. And the thing that I would generally pay attention to, so I'm not going to name any names of like new things you should look at, is how many people are on the platform. And what you want to make sure is that you're not investing time and energy into a platform that has low reach, unless the specific demographic that you're going after is there. So for example, like on Twitch, if you're going for a more like a younger, more gamey community, absolutely get on the platform. I found that Instagram Reels get more views than anything else, like thousands, where we normally get a handful of views on regular posts. Why is that? Because people like video and they're like clicking through things and looking at it. And I also think that the algorithm surfaces more like Reels more easily for folks. I have also seen that engagement on static posts is going down. And I think this is really layering on to the strong suggestion to lean into video wherever you can. Ideas on using social media for recruiting volunteers for our small NGO. Do it. This is one of those storytelling things, and I think kind of mirrors the question at the top of this section around how do we convert social media engagement to donation. You need to have something compelling to bring people in and a clear CTA and make it easy for them to sign up. So if you're using social media and you want volunteers, have just like a one-step form. You see this post, you want to help, go here, fill out the form, we'll get back to you. Remove barriers from people to get from A to Z. Attention spans are really short. All right, platform suggestions to use when wanting to schedule posts in advance. HubSpot. There's also Sprout Social, there's Hootsuite, there's a number. HubSpot does a great job of this. There's others that do a great job as well. Check out Sprout Social if you have not. Tried to use Facebook Business Suite to post to Facebook and Insta, but it trims my videos on Insta. Do you recommend any other tool to post to multiple accounts? Interesting. I do not have experience with this, so I don't feel super able to answer, but any of these social media scheduling tools will be able to support you in making your video the exact format per platform and pushing it to that platform on schedule. All right, tips to increase followership and engagement. I think it's all about your social media strategy. So hopefully today was helpful in terms of tips to really set yourselves up for success in terms of identifying your audiences and speaking to them in a language that they can understand on the platforms where they're already hanging out. Do you think it's important that organizations collaborate and involve all staff when developing a social media strategy and brand? Well, it depends on how big your staff is. This can easily become a too many cooks situation. I also think that this is an important and interesting discussion around demographics. What I think is the most important thing is that you first identify who your audiences are. Who do you want to reach? And because authenticity is so important, is there parity between the audiences that you're trying to reach and the folks that you have on staff? And if so, those people should be at the table. Absolutely. Okay. We stray away from sharing the donate button on Instagram because we can't track the person down if they donated. So yes, same exact problem on Facebook. This is kind of that catch-22. It's really, really difficult if you cannot cultivate the donor after a one-time gift. So where you run your campaign and how you run it really depends on your long-term strategy. Integrating different audiences from different social media channels for a more unified messaging strategy. So I think instead of reverse engineering, what I am suggesting is that you meet them where they are. So you don't want to bring everybody into one platform. What you want to do is segment your list to make sure that your efforts are converting at the highest rate possible. It means a little bit more upfront work for you and your staff and your organization to create a strategy and to identify your audiences and think about in-platform strategy as well as follow-up. But segmentation is absolutely key. Target audience is military and vets, so it includes an older audience. So this is another one where I'm like, oh, I wish we could have a conversation. I would be so interested in doing just a quick survey, depending on your existing donor demographic, about who's online and where they're online and what content they like. I think this might be like an ask the audience situation. Otherwise, I'm also really interested in any ROI that you're doing in the direct mail world. And then lastly, including an older audience doesn't mean to forget about younger audience and new donor cultivation. So it might be that you're doing more direct mail, more post-COVID in-person events, more sort of volunteer opportunities to create community in person for an older audience. But younger audiences, you're going to want to implement social media strategies so that you have long-term sustainability. All right. I'm interested in finding more ways to engage our followers, increase interaction on social media. This is the age-old question. I think we've talked a lot about it today. And yeah, that's what we're all trying to do. So I would say here, set a goal, figure out where folks are hanging out, what platforms they're on, benchmark where you're at today and where you want to go, and then measure every activity that you do and only engage in the activities that are showing an ROI for you and your team. It is not important to be on all the platforms. I think, we called out some of the big ones today, but really what's important is to be in the spaces and places where your core audiences are, or where you would like to grow a core audience. Tips or thoughts on Reels? Absolutely, use them. Be authentic, don't overproduce content, have fun. How important is it to be on TikTok? I think we've sort of answered these. Frequency of engagement on social media and best days depends on what type of content you're putting out and what platform, but some of those tools, HubSpot, Sprout, Hootsuite, there's a number of others, they will actually tell you the same way that like a good email marketing system will tell you when to send, they will tell you when to post. How do we set up Facebook ads to have parents sign up their high school seniors to participate? So Facebook ads, you're going to want a really clear CTA and then a really easy form for people to submit. Yes, HubSpot has special prices for nonprofits, 40% off pro and enterprise software. You can email me. I will also put in the chat www.hubspot.com/nonprofits to get more information there. It never hurts to apply. You can actually, if you apply, you get added to our newsletter. I'm very much tooting my team's horn right now. That newsletter is epic. It sends once a month and it's an aggregate. It's not HubSpot sales. It's like, hey, here's what you need to know about the sector. And here's really cool opportunities to engage, like webinars like this one. All right. Does anybody have tips on creating a streamlined process in getting participant stories? Ooh, this is a great question. So this is asking the folks who you serve, or your users in some cases, to generate content and then having a strategy for putting that content online. And I think that having a really strong governance model, making sure that your process for thinking about the strategy is inclusive of the voices that you want to demonstrate, those things will reduce potential tokenization and also make the stories much more authentic. So bring people in, get their feedback, and generally incentivize folks. If you want people to share their stories, maybe pay them for their time and make sure that they know exactly where that story is going to go and what it's going to do. Our nonprofit handles animal adoptions. If we're posting the same animals on Instagram and Facebook and it needs to convey the same information, how should we differentiate? So again, I think this is questions about video formats, video length, static images. If you're on Instagram, I would say you're probably going to want a static post. You're definitely going to want to do some set reels of animals, maybe like cute adoption stories that you aggregate. And then you're going to want to use stories for daily updates versus Facebook, which is obviously a bit more static and brings people in and invites some more conversation. All right. Ads and boosts. Sorry, y'all, we have 2 minutes, so I'm going to start to cruise through this. Are ads and boosts worth it? It depends. Paid ad spend on per platform, dive in a little bit. What should you be paying per platform? Because it's all different. And what should your conversion be? Really important. Generally, yes, paid ads are worth it if they are done well. And how do we create a Facebook ad to target parents to sign up for our panel discussions? I think we talked about this with volunteers. Same answer. All right, that was a lot. 2 minutes left. I'm going to stop talking now. Thank you, everybody. That was an awesome Q&A session.
Thank you so much, Julia. That was actually very, very insightful. I think all of us must have learned lots and lots of things about all of these platforms, and the tips and tricks that you shared, the best practices that you shared, and most importantly, the resources that you've shared are very, very useful. And also, we have an amazing group on Facebook called Karma Community for Nonprofits. And for that, I think my colleague will be sharing a link in the chat box, and feel free to join that. Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing all your education. And
thanks so much for having me. Really nice to spend time with everybody. Have a great rest of your day.